Hey guys, DasBoSchitt here. Regrettably, I come to you today with some truly upsetting news. For those of you who don't know, the Source Machinima community has lost yet another of its best and brightest. I am, of course, referring to Colin Wyckoff, known on the internet as Kitty0706. On January 25th, 2015, Colin lost his ongoing 2-year battle with leukemia, leaving behind a truly memorable legacy. This video will be paying tribute to Colin both from myself and the people I've contacted who are very close to him, as we say goodbye to the man who touched us in so many ways. I met Colin back in 2008, back when Gmod Machinimas were starting to really grow. Both of us learned a lot from each other. We shared our resources and our techniques, and we helped each other improve greater than we ever expected. You may not have seen many obvious collaborative projects between us, but trust me, we jumped at the chance to provide help for each other whenever something came up. He was especially helpful to me when I had some last-minute mapping projects I needed done for the Idiot Box. It wasn't like I needed to ask either. He always volunteered before I remembered to. He always had to be active in something. If he wasn't hard at work on his own projects, he always wanted to help others with theirs. Hearing the news that Colin was stricken with leukemia was pretty upsetting, to say the least. Cancer hits a particular nerve with me personally, so it's always upsetting to hear people I care about getting it. Colin, however, never seemed to complain about it, though, not once. I'd spoken to him when he was stuck in the hospital for a good while, and he never complained about the procedures or the illness itself or even the hospital food. The only thing that ever seemed to bother him was that he had a ton of ideas and no medium of which to express them while he was stuck in a hospital bed. Once the leukemia was beaten, he was excited to go home and just go nuts on his goals to make people laugh again. After a bone marrow transplant, I was overjoyed at the chance to start helping him get back into the rhythm of his videos again. Sadly, I never actually heard the news that his leukemia came back, even after the transplant. I was in the middle of MagFest 2015 when I heard the news that Colin had passed away, and it hung a very dark cloud over my head for the rest of the event, to say the least. I remember wishing I had the chance to speak to him more during his last days, wishing I could let him know how much of a great friend he's been and how much he's inspired us all, including myself. I spent the last 2 days in DC in preparing this tribute video, as I just couldn't get the news out of my mind. While there, I've gotten in touch with a few of the people that Colin was particularly close to, and they'll be joining me through the rest of this video to give Colin the send-off that he deserves. I want to extend them all my thanks for being here today, as I know this wasn't easy for them to do.
Hi. Some of you know me as either Elliot's grandmama, or Sheik or Zelda from Ass's Creed Enter the Anus, but I'm Nessie. I'm Kitty0706's girlfriend. I'd never thought I'd have to say something like this, so I'll start from the beginning. I first met Colin at vocational school. I wasn't shy, but I was really picky about people. I first saw him drawing cartoon animals, and we both started talking about drawing, and one thing led to another, and then he told me that he had a YouTube channel, Kitty0706. When I got home from school that day, I looked at his videos, and at the time, he had 5 million views, 3 million, 4.5, and the views back then were tremendous. We had hung out at Vogue for the next 2 years. Nothing too much happened. I broke up with a jerk, he broke up with another jerk. Everyone in Vogue saw us together as a couple. The only problem was he was far too nervous to say anything, and I have the romantic attention span of a cinder block. Around May of 2012, he had fell ill, to which I thought, oh, it's probably a cold or something. Monday rolls around, and the teacher tells us that he had cancer, so for the last bit of the year, he wanted all of us to make cards. No one was friends with him like I was, so they all kept asking me, oh, what is he like? What does he do? Blah, blah, blah. And we watched nothing but his videos online for 2 days straight. few weeks go by, everyone wraps up their cards, and I ask the teacher, hey, I know where he lives. I can give it to him personally, right? And of course he lets me. I went a few days later and saw him, and even in his condition, he was doing great. He had shown me a segment of Elliot Goes Camping, from the beginning to about when my roll stops. I was rolling on the floor laughing at it. A few more months go by and we start hanging out a bit more, playing games and talking over them to make videos. If you guys want to look it up, it's anything with game time with Nessie and Elliot. The more I saw him and hung out with him, the more I fell for him. But I thought, perfect guy like him would date something like me? Not a chance. I was so wrong. After an episode with my mother one night, I went to bed crying and really upset. I had checked my phone to see that he had texted me all day asking where I was. I told him what had happened and he'd ask if there was anything he could do for me. I told him, you know what, just talking to you is making me feel a lot better, and over the course of the night, we told each other that, well, we were in love with each other. Several months go by, and while I was working, I heard his leukemia came back. I became hysterical and ran from my job to the hospital where he was staying at. He told me that he needed a bone marrow transplant and he might not make it. And from that moment until he was released, I was scared. Scared for myself, scared for his family, but almost entirely for him. He had come out of the hospital 2 months later, and I was completely relieved. 3 weeks ago, I heard he wasn't doing what he was supposed to in order to be healthy, so I kept texting him, did you take your pills yet? Did you take your pills yet? And I did it almost every day. And this past Friday, I hear that his leukemia came back, and there was nothing they could do. The last time I saw him was later that afternoon. I fell into his arms and sobbed uncontrollably. After his parents went into another room, he told me that he was gonna go painlessly and that he'd watch over me and his family and friends and everybody that cared about him. I think he knew out of everyone, I would probably miss him the most. We talked about how I promised he'd live on in almost everything I would create and do, and while we were talking, it almost felt like nothing was gonna happen to him. The last thing he said to me was, don't change and stay the way you are, happy. It probably sounds really dumb, but as my hands shake reading this and going over this, I shiver without a chill in the air, and I feel him now. I feel him hugging me and telling me that it's okay. Look at that. My hands are shaking again. Just like his.
Hello. My name is Derek, aka Remembrance Productions. Colin Wyckoff was my best friend ever. We met about 6 years ago whenever he was still focused on Half-Life 2 Project Resistance. At the time I thought it was amazing, so I added him on Steam and I'm like, okay, can you teach me how to do this? Then from then on we just became best friends. We have many memories together. One of my best memories with him is actually one night in the Arma 3, we played hide and seek with the soldiers. And then we would do missions to the music of Tenacious D. Colin was one of the most caring, kind, selfless, and courageous people I ever knew. Even in the face of death, he was always positive, happy. He wanted everyone else to be happy around him. That was pretty much his goal in life, was to make everyone as happy as possible, and I think he's still doing that even in death. We talked the Friday before he passed away. I was actually just trying to arrange a time to play another game with him because it had been a little while since we played something or really talked that much, because he's been busy with hospital visits and I've been busy with my life. But then that day he told me that, unfortunately, even after a transplant, that his leukemia was back for good, and that the only thing they could do was slow it down. So we said what we needed to say, said our goodbyes. One of the last things he told me, though, was to not let his passing change me, to not let it change who I am. To this day, the only reason I know how to animate, manage a YouTube account, do anything on YouTube, or have even minor success on YouTube, it's all due to him. I owe pretty much my entire animation career to him. I promised him that I would remain happy for him, and I would finish our final video for him. In return, he promised that he would haunt me with visions of mafiosos and Joe Barbaro. Still yet to see that, but I'm waiting. Anyway, I just wanted to say that Colin was the best friend a guy could ever ask for, and I miss him and love him to death. I will never forget him, and it seems like the rest of the community will never forget him. Goodbye, Colin Wyckoff. Rest in peace.
Hey, I'm Bitrate. When I heard the news that Colin had passed, I didn't really know what to think. I wanted not to believe it at first, but after some digging around, it's really hard to come to terms with. Colin was a really amazing friend to me. I've known him for about 6 years or so. We met a long while back on YouTube. We both had a bit of a following at the time, and we worked together on some projects. Colin was always a really happy and cheerful kind of person. He always was a real pleasure to hang out with and, just generally be around. He always managed to, cheer up his friends and even me at times when I was feeling down. I still remember the days when we worked on dumb videos together and just fooled around in Gmod for hours, and it just felt like it could be endless. He was a pretty big inspiration to me, because even back when he was first diagnosed with leukemia, he kept his head up high and just kept striding on. It was really, really amazing to see him just roll with the punches that life was giving him. He's, to this day, the strongest friend that I've ever had, and I really don't think anybody can argue that. Although I'm pretty horribly saddened by his passing, I'm glad to know that he's finally at peace, and I'll never forget him. He'll always have a special place in my heart. Rest in peace, buddy. I'm gonna miss you a hell of a lot.
Hi everyone, my name is Mike, or better known as Kogi Fox on the internet. I met Colin in 2010. I added him to Skype randomly one day, and he accepted me. We hit it off real quick. We were talking about music and all kinds of other stuff. He turned me on to all kinds of really cool bands, like almost instantly, and I'm pretty grateful for that. He was such an amazing friend. Just everything that he did, he was so incredibly passionate about, and I was incredibly jealous of his just skill and talent and everything he did. He actually helped me get started in voice acting, and he helped me with video editing and all kinds of other cool stuff, and I'm just incredibly grateful for everything. As the years progressed and leukemia was a thing with him, no matter what the situation, he was just always so incredibly positive about every single thing. One of my favorite memories with him was with the Team Bobby 2 video. Basically, we all joined a TF2 server and just started messing around with silly voices and, playing a fun game. And it was literally like a real-life representation of the Team Fabulous 2 video that he made. And, I just have so many great memories of just, talking with him and playing games with him. And when that terrible night finally happened, I just wish I was around to say something to him before he went. I came home the following Sunday, logged on to Facebook and just saw all the messages, and I just didn't want to believe it was true. He was an incredibly good friend, and he was incredibly good to me. And no matter what, I'm always going to remember everything he did for me. Colin, you were an amazing friend, and recording this right now, I'm literally about to cry. But I'm gonna miss you, buddy. You were awesome. I'm so grateful that I got to know you and be your friend, because you've made such an impact on my life and everyone else's life. And for that, I'm just so incredibly grateful. You were like the brother that I always wanted and wish that I still had. Your memory will live on forever through your videos and your media and your works and just everything that you did. You'll never be forgotten, and that is something that is truly awesome. Rest in peace, buddy. Stay classy wherever you may be.
Hi, my name is Brandon. I usually go by Run from the Minges or Stop Climber Time. I first became friends with Colin about 6 or 7 years ago. I first knew him through watching one of his videos. I saw on my homepage there's this Gmod Machinima video called Left for Farts, and I watched it and I was in tears, watching the entire thing. And I watched a bunch of his other videos, and they were just so funny, and they were so great. And I think this was early on when I think he only had like 1,000 subscribers, a couple thousand, so he wasn't too big just yet. So I added him, and he accepted it. So we just started talking, and we started becoming really good friends. And for a while, we were playing Gmod Sandbox together, and we would just talk in these ridiculous, stupid voices, high-pitched nerd voice, or impersonating, people. Pee Wee Herman, I remember, was one of them too. And I remember what came up once. I started doing the stupid nerd voice, and he was like, "Oh, I really like that. Why don't you, why don't you start on one of my videos?" He was getting all these ideas, and I was in shock. Like, even though he's my friend, I was intimidated by him because he was hilarious. He created all these great videos, and what an honor that was, honestly. And I can't stress enough how much of a positive person he was. I went through some pretty annoying, some pretty hard times through our friendship. Not directly to him, but it's more on my own end. And he was always supportive. He was always positive. He always had my back, and he helped me through a lot. And he's had this unique aura. He inspired everyone he met. It really seemed that way. Hell, you can even look up his YouTube name, and there's dozens of videos of people talking about how he inspired them to even make a YouTube channel, to start making videos, Gmod Machinima, and that really says a lot. He was an incredibly talented, funny, and amazing friend to me. And I can't stress enough how much of a tragedy this was. My thoughts are with his family.
This next one comes from Colin's friend, known on the internet as Folding Chair. He didn't have a usable mic to record with, so he wrote his sentiments for me to read out. Most of my most memorable times were when I was hanging out with Colin. He and I used to have an absolute blast when we collaborated on videos or whenever we hung out together. Even during his diagnosis, I went to go see him, and the first few days he was undergoing his treatment, I was an emotional train wreck afterwards. Months passed after that, and he got better. He was up on his feet and talking to us as if nothing ever happened. He was one of the most optimistic dudes I ever met. Now, out of the blue, this happened. In the end, all he wanted to do was to make others happy, and he did that. I'll never forget the good times Colin and I shared together. I wish I never had to write this, or anyone else for that matter. I'll never forget you, bro, and I'll miss you always.
Hi, I'm Hui. also known as Stephen Gama. I've known Colin for about 8 years now, and I just want to say that he's probably the brightest person that I ever met in my life, and just a great fucking person. He inspired me to do a lot of good things. He changed the way I felt about life, the way I worked at stuff. Just made me an overall better person, and I'm very thankful for having met him. I remember talking to him a few days before his death when he told me that leukemia had struck once again, and it was pretty fucking sad. But what was so amazing is how he was. He just refused to be negative about anything. He was just always positive. Like, we were talking about like all these hilarious memories we had of each other, how we met, when we met up, stuff like that. It was really nice to have a conversation like that with him. It was also really sad, but it's just amazing to see someone who is in that situation still be really positive. It's really amazing. I'd like to give him a huge thanks for being such a great person and just making the last 8 years of my life the greatest it could have ever been. I would like to send all my prayers to his family, his friends, all those people, his fans, and all that. You know, he was a great guy, and I'm gonna miss him a lot.
Earlier we had sentiments from Nessie, who's also well versed in singing as it turns out. She wishes to wrap up this send-off by singing a cover to Cara Mia, something she didn't have the chance to sing to Colin at the time. I also wanted to mention briefly that this video is indeed monetized, but for good reason, as I plan to take all the proceeds earned from this video and donate it to leukemia research. As we say goodbye to Colin, I feel it's important to remember that while saying goodbye sucks, we shouldn't feel too sad for too long. All Colin ever wanted to do was to spread joy. So sometime soon, make it a point to tell your friends how much they mean to you. Don't let the idea of sounding dumb around them bother you. You just may regret not telling them sooner if something ever happened to them. Thanks for joining us. Take it away, Nessie.